irregular warfare, and counterinsurgency operations has greatly increased the number of requirements related to sociocultural analysis, from data collection models to data collection itself, to taxonomies, to analytic methods, to processing, exploitation, and dissemination. These requirements reflect the growing needs of our combatant commands, our combat support agencies, the services, our national agencies, our coalition partners, and academia as well. On just Tuesday, Director Clapper emphasized the importance of partnerships in information sharing and information integration within the intelligence community and between our second and third party partners. Enable the combatant command sociocultural analysis cells, which exist at 5 of the 6 geographic commands in addition to SOCOM, so that's AFRICOM, CENTCOM, EUCOM, PACOM, and SOUTHCOM, to mature their analytic capabilities with respect to the requirements of their combatant commander and the Joint Intelligence and Operations Center that they exist within.
Ugh, it's like watching paint dry, but he's basically describing
Jennings said, there's one of your robots.
Yeah, I think it's one of the autonomous robots right there. They wheel him out and let him disseminate the propaganda.
Still very dangerous.
Right. Yeah. So now we go a year later. We already played this video in the last hour, but I want to play it again so we have all this contained in one giant capsule of truth that we can launch out of the airlock here in a second. At the end of this hour. So this is from the opening video of their 2011 conference. So a year has gone by since we've heard from these guys how they want to collect data, how they want to classify people. Now they're really going in. 2011's when we started seeing more iPhones out there. They can really grab all this data from people, all this metadata, the phone calls, where you travel, and turn it into a living document that can be accessed through the cloud in real time. So here it is.
The threats that we face don't recognize boundaries, whether those are physical boundaries or organizational boundaries or agency boundaries. And every time we're inhibited in our response to those threats by our own boundaries, we've lessened our impact.
Just take away all restrictions on us.
We lessen our services to those decision makers, and we ultimately affect our national security in a negative way.
The consequence to the nation if we don't integrate intelligence, I believe, is simply that we will miss things. We won't deliver the best possible solution set to our mission partners, whether that's the policymaker, the warfighter, or the first responder.
This type of warfare today, the types of threats that we face require rapid assimilation of information, rapid understanding and situational awareness, rapid decision. So if without integrated intelligence, it's like fighting with both hands tied behind your back, blindfold over your eyes. It's uncertainty, it's poor decisions, it's delayed decisions, it's loss of opportunity, it's loss of momentum.
So the way you are most likely to recognize the content, the substance, the early warning, the value of information.
And when she talks about integrating it, that means consolidating
in the most comprehensive way.
That means consolidating the military as well as law enforcement.
You understand sensors and capabilities, you understand collection, you understand the question, you understand the needs, potential threats, and you're putting that information together in a way that the sum is significantly larger, more valuable, more useful than the individual parts.
All right, and now I want to play this Clapper clip. This is back in 2007 where he's talking about how important drones are to get the big wide aerial view, but we need something to get the straw tip. And we're going quick because we're running out of time here, so I want to go to this clip right now. And this is James Clapper from 2007.
Full motion video, UAVs and all that sort of thing, which is they can't get enough of out there. And we've going through a recent upheaval in the Pentagon,
killing innocent people.
In response to General Petraeus' request, we got to get more out here. I think it's a good thing to bear in mind, though, that they're great for the fix and finish piece, not so great for the fine piece. And so what we really need, and I think General Cartwright, I think spoke to this early when he was here, is this combination of wide area surveillance, which you can then use to cue the sort of soda straw focused collection of the UAVs. And that in turn, I think, is a commercial for the proliferation, the more sensors, the more platforms, the more phenomenologies that we have up there, the better it is.
And then you got yesterday, FBI admits to flying secret surveillance flights over Baltimore for days as the city rioted over the death of Freddie Gray. So they're using the drone, and in this case they're flying planes, but it probably had drones up there too, getting the wide-angle surveillance, and then they're using Twitter and Facebook to get those little in-depth, the personal
Well, and of course, the problem with all that is that these are not surgical strikes in reality. Even though they're supposed to have this omniscient, omnipotent intelligence, we see that there have been thousands of people who are innocent who've been killed in these drone strikes.
A lot of children.
Many, many more times the number of supposedly guilty individuals. And how do we determine that these individuals are guilty? That's the thing that concerns us when this is being done domestically, because we have lost our due process. We've lost the privacy about all this information. They are putting this all together. We're going to talk about the predictive aspects of this as well. We're going to show you more clips of what mastering the human domain really means and why you should be concerned about the intel aspects of this so-called military Operation Jade Helm. We'll be right back.
Of the importance of the human domain and that the sophisticated understanding of all those things you said, tribal history, language, culture, it's so significant. One of the programs we've put into place, and just think about this, most of the U.S. Army is coming home. I mean, for various reasons, et cetera. We're not forward deployed, not going to be easy to study that.
Oh, Brigade Homeland.
This program we have of regionally aligned forces is an intellectual commitment by our Army that says you're a professional soldier, you're likely to fight here, you better start that understanding of the operational environment. Whether you take no intel at rest, whether your entire ACE or your Intel Analytical section is focused on supporting a specific problem set down range, studying that down to individual level fidelity, the opportunity, the preparation of putting leaders on the ground, putting great young leaders on the ground in that environment, growing, experiencing it, being immersed in it.
Big different culture, as he said.
But I think identifying this lesson,
we eat different barbecue, that's about it.
Some did it well, some did not do it well, and then building those appropriate mechanisms through regionally aligned forces and the constructs that we're developing in terms of that intellectual commitment to mastering that is absolutely essential.
We have lots of people who've grown up over the last 10 years who understand working with NGOs, with governmental organizations, with interagency partners. So what are we going to do now? Are we going to continue that? Are we going to continue to develop these relationships? Are we going to continue to understand each other, how to operate together? That's a challenge we have. I'm willing to assign military officers and NCOs to these organizations.
Oh.
I'm willing to do training with these organizations. Mm-hmm. The challenge is going to be, is it going to be reciprocal? And that's what we have to work on, because I don't have to relearn this again. As you said, we had some problems. Not everybody got it, but we have a lot of people who did. And we have a lot of young officers and NCOs who did this at a very low level. And so it's incumbent on us to make sure that we don't lose this and that we capture this and we continue to do it in a peacetime environment. When we do our exercises now and at the training centers, we are including a civil military piece of it.
A civil piece of it.
The issue is how we continue to support that as we move forward, and can we continue to get support.
There you go. Yeah. Civilian and military working together. That was from the Association of the United States Army panel discussing the importance of the human domain. They were just discussing.
They're merging together. And again, from the very beginning, this has been the NSA, this has been the U.S. Geological Service, this has been law enforcement, it's been military, working to put together all this information in terms of the Dragnet surveillance.
Working with Google, Facebook, Twitter.
You know, when you had the lieutenant colonel who came here and he said, well, you know, the cultures are different. People are like, what is he talking about? Yeah. He's parroting back what they're talking about with this human domain analytics. And it's important to understand, too, the predictive nature of it. They're talking about this in the same terms as pre-crime for law enforcement. Mm-hmm. That's where they're drawing this from. They say, we're going to look at this environment. Of course, we're not saying there's any bad guys or we don't know who the bad guys are. We're just collecting data on everybody. Then we will analyze it. We'll see what pops up, and then we'll get a close inspection on them. And then if you are either permissive or hostile when they contact you, they'll know what to do.
And now that we've destroyed the economy, this is going to be one of the areas that you can get a job at. Predictive programming, predictive crime, working in these areas, going to the Doomsday Disney World and working there. I mean, we're just basically going to be be creating janitors to go around and clean up this mess that we've created.
Well, again, this predictive nature, whether it's law enforcement, especially if it's the military coming into an area, that's what should really concern us, this pre-crime thing where they analyze the data, and then because you stick out in some way, now you're treated as if you've already had due process, as if you've already been found guilty of a crime. And we see how these SWAT teams breaking down the doors of innocent people who have small amounts of drugs that are nonviolent. Exactly. This should be very concerning when we see this kind of use of this dragnet surveillance. Well, that's it for today. Thank you for joining us, Rob Dew and David Knight. And I hope you will do your own investigation and find out what they're trying to do in mastering you, the human domain.